Hare Krishna, somebody can please lead the invocation prayers.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I do Prabhu?
Go ahead.
Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjala-shalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. So today we will first cover Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, verses 31 to 65, and finish this Chapter 28 as well as finish this unit number 19. And next week, you all will do your presentations. So on tomorrow, Sunday, daylight saving time changes in Toronto. So we will change the time for Toronto devotees. We'll make it 1 hour late. So it will be 11:45 a.m. Toronto time. India time will stay the same so that it does not become very late for devotees in India. I will, of course, send messages for this, so follow along. So, Canto 4, Chapter 28. We are on Part 2, verses 28 to 32, where the title is Puranjana becomes Vaidarbhi. We are discussing Malayadwaja and his children. The 7 sons are the 7 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, offering worship, offering prayers, rendering transcendental loving service, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. The leftover verses in this section, verses 31 and 32, are straightforward on further descendants and daughters' descendants. Shivangi, 31 describes the descendants.
Hare Krishna, text 31. My dear King Pachina the sons of Manitwaja gave birth to many thousands and thousands of sons, and all of these have been protecting the entire world up to the end of one Manu's lifespan and even afterward. Hare Krishna.
So many sons indicate that each of the devotional processes, such as Shravanam, can be subdivided into innumerable categories, such as hearing the name, pastimes, qualities of the Lord, then worship the different avatars, then devotional services in different rasas. The further descendants are the 4 sampradayas, and they ruled the whole earth, means earth was protected from ignorance and materialism. Shivangi, 32 also. So 32 is daughters, descendants is straightforward.
Hare Krishna, text 32. The great sage Agastya married the firstborn daughter of Maledwaja, the avowed devotee of Lord Krishna. From her one son was born, whose name was Dittajutta, and from him another son was born, whose name was Idmavaha. Hare Krishna.
So now part 3, verses 33 to 42. Title is Malayadwaja and Vaidarbhi retire. Verse number 33 explains that when disciples are grown up and able to preach, then the spiritual master should retire and sit down in solitary place to write books and execute Niranjana Bhajan. Niranjana Bhajan means sitting silently in a solitary place and executing devotional service. So this Niranjana Bhajan, which is silent worship of the Supreme Lord, is not possible for neophyte devotee. Shalini, 33 translation and purport.
Text 33. After this, the great saintly king Malayadwaja divided his entire kingdom amongst his sons. Then, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to a solitary place known as Kulachala. Malayadwaja, the great king, was certainly a Mahabhagavata, topmost devotee. By executing devotional service, he begot many sons and disciples for propagating the bhakti cult, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Actually, the entire world should be divided among such disciples. Everyone should be engaged in preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. In other words, when disciples are grown up and are able to preach, the spiritual master should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjana Bhajana. This means sitting silently in a solitary place and executing devotional service. This Nirjana Bhajana, which is the silent worship of the Supreme Lord, is not possible for a neophyte devotee. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura never advised a neophyte devotee to go to a solitary place to engage in devotional service. Indeed, he has written a song in this connection. Dushtamana, Tumi Kisera Vaishnava, Pratisthara Tare, Nirjanera Ghare, Tava Hari Nama Kevala Ketva. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but this is all cheating. Thus, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura advocated that every devotee, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, preach the Bhakti cult, Krishna consciousness all over the world. Only when one is mature can he sit in a solitary place and retire from preaching all over the world. Following this example, the devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness now render service as preachers in various parts of the world. Now, they can allow the spiritual master to retire from active preaching work. In the last stage of the spiritual master's life, the devotees of the spiritual master should take preaching activities into their own hands. In this way, the spiritual master can sit down in a solitary place and render Nirjana Bhajana. Hare Krishna.
So Nirjana Bhajan means silent worship of the Supreme Lord, but this is not possible for a neophyte devotee. Therefore, for a neophyte devotee, advice is to not go to a solitary place to engage in devotional service. Rather, everyone should be engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness. Then the spiritual master can retire and spiritual master can do Niranjana Bhajan. Questions, comments, realizations?
Prabhuji, one way developing succession. No, they like a relay race. People continue, develop confidence.
All right. So Vaidarbhi followed Maladhwaja and their austerities. All these are described in next set of verses. Mother Jija, 34, 35, 36 translations.
Text 34. Just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malaya Dwaja departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children. Text 35 and 36. In the province of Kulachala, there were rivers named Chandravasa, Tamara Parpi, and Vatodaka. King Malaya Dwaja used to go to these pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus he purified himself externally and internally. He took his bath and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, roots, fruits, and grasses, and drank water. In this way, he underwent severe austerities. Eventually, he became very skinny. Hare Krishna.
So austerity is being performed. Now, next verse describes how to conquer relatives and dualities. Chandran Prabhu, 37 translation and purport.
Hare Krishna. Text 37. Through austerity, King Malayadwaja in body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relatives. Purport. Liberation means becoming free from the relatives of the world. Unless one is self-realized, he has to undergo the dual struggle of the relative world. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to conquer all relatives through tolerance. Lord Krishna points out that it is the relatives like winter and summer that give us trouble in the material world. In the winter, we do not like taking a bath, but in the summer, we wish to take a bath twice, thrice, or more a day. Thus, Krishna advises us not to be disturbed by such relatives and dualities when they come and go. The common man has to undergo much austerity to become equipoised before dualities. One who becomes agitated by the relatives of life has accepted the relative position and must therefore undergo the austerities prescribed in the Shastras to transcend the material body and put an end to material existence. King Malayadwaja underwent severe austerities by leaving his home, going to Kulachala, taking his bath in the sacred rivers, and eating only vegetables like stems, fruits, seeds, flowers, and leaves, avoiding any cooked food or grains. These are very, very austere practice. In this age, it is very difficult to leave home and go to the forest or the Himalayas to adopt the process of austerity. Indeed, it is almost impossible. If one is even advised to give up meat eating, drinking, gambling, and illicit sex, one will fail to do so. What then would a person do if he went to Himalayas or Kulachala? Such acts of renunciation are not possible in this age. Therefore, Lord Krishna has advised us to accept the Bhakti Yoga process. Bhakti Yoga will automatically liberate a person from the dualities of life. In Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is the center and Krishna is always transcendental. Thus, in order to transcend dualities, one must always engage in the service of the Lord as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam cha yo vyabhichara sarena bhakti yogena sevati sagunan samatityatan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. If one is factually engaged in the service of the Lord, Bhakti Yoga, he will automatically control his senses, his tongue, and so many other things. Once engaged in the Bhakti Yoga process, with all sincerity, one will have no chance of falling down. Even if one falls down, there is no loss. One's devotional activities may be stunned or choked for the time being. But as soon as there is another chance, the practitioner begins from the point where he left off. Hare Krishna.
So Krishna advises not to be disturbed by relatives and dualities. So remain equipoised, tolerate. So in this age, it is very difficult to leave home, to go to forest or go to Himalayas to adopt the process of austerity. It is almost impossible. Therefore, the solution is to transcend the dualities, to transcend the modes of material nature. One must engage in devotional service of the Lord by avyabhicharine bhakti. Therefore, Prabhupada quotes 14.26 Bhagavad Gita verse. Questions, comments, realizations? So by doing all these austerities, what's the result is described in next set of verses. Uncle will read 38 to 42 translations.
Hare Krishna. Text 38, translation. By worshipping, executing austerities, and following the regulative principles, King Malaya Dwaja conquered his senses, his life, and his consciousness. Thus, he fixed everything on the central point of the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Text 39. In this way, he stayed immovable in one place for 100 years by the calculation of demigods. After this time, he developed pure devotional attraction for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he remained fixed in that position. Text 40. King Malaya Dwaja attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the individual soul. The individual soul is localized, whereas the super soul is all pervasive. He became perfect in knowledge that the material body is not the soul, but the soul is the witness of the material body. Text 41. In this way, King Malay Dwaja attained perfect knowledge because in his pure state he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By means of such enlightening transcendental knowledge, he could understand everything from all angles of vision. Text 42. King Malaya Dwaja could thus observe that the super soul was sitting by his side and that he, as the individual soul, was sitting by the side of the super soul. Since both were together, there was no need for separate interests. Thus, he ceased from such activities. Hare Krishna.
So by devotional services, he fixed the mind, developed rati for Vasudev. When a devotee is serious and sincere, Then the Lord gives directions from within. So the verse 42 describes how the super soul and the individual soul are sitting side by side. Now, part 4 is verses 43 to 50. Title is Instructions for a Disciple from Her Example. So the instructions are attitude, steadiness, and service-mindedness are the instructions for a disciple from Vaidarbhi's example. Verse number 43 is on attitude. Mother Chandra Aunty, 43 translation.
Text 43 translation. The daughter of King Vaidarbhi accepted her husband in all as the supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus, she remained engaged in his service.
So figuratively, Malaya Dwaja is the spiritual master and his wife Vaidarbhi is the disciple. So disciple accepts spiritual master as the supreme lord and executes the order of the spiritual master as his life and soul. So this is the attitude learning. Verse 44 is on steadiness. Mother Chandra Aunty, 44.
Text 44. The daughter of King Vaidarbhi wore old garments and she was lean and thin because of her vows of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire.
So if a disciple remains steady in serving his spiritual master, then he does not have fear of falling down in Maya's clutches. And 45 is on service. Mother Chandra, 45 translation.
Yes. Text 45. The daughter of King Vaidarbhi continued as usual to serve her husband, who was seated in a steady posture until she could ascertain that he had passed away from the body.
Right. So, sir, so attitude, steadiness, and service-mindedness. These are the instructions for a disciple from Vaidarbhi's example. Verses 46 to 50 are on the separation and lamentation. Gopal, 46 to 50 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 46 translation. While she was serving her husband by massaging his legs, she could feel that his feet were no longer warm and could thus understand that he had already passed from the body. She felt great anxiety upon being left alone. Bereft of her husband's company, she felt exactly as the deer feels upon being separated from its mate. Text 47. Being now alone and a widow in the forest, the daughter of Vaidarbhi began to lament, incessantly shedding tears, which soaked her breast and crying very loudly. Text 48. O best of king, please get up. Get up. Just see this world surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her. Text 49. The most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her dead husband and began to cry pitifully in that solitary forest. Thus the tears rolled down from her eyes. Text 50. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations so far? Shivangi.
Prabhuji, is it normal for usually if a couple is married for the husband to take the lead in devotional services? Like in this case, the king was leading his wife.
So Prabhupada has explained many times that Vedic culture means devotee should be husband, the other husband should be a devotee and wife should be chaste wife serving the husband, and this way the wife gets the same result as the husband. So we cannot judge according to current times. So you have to understand Vedic times and we have to go back to the roots. So we may be contaminated right now in the way the society is living. But we have to go back to how we should be. If we plan to go back home, back to Godhead, then we have to live in the Vedic way of life. And I had given an example from the Toronto temple. So it's possible to live this way. So this one time, so I know these devotees who are very good book distributors. They have a very young child. The young child is also a book distributor. But I did not know their names. I know them that they do book distribution, they do services. I just did not know the name. So one time the wife was doing services in the kitchen and at the altar area. So I asked the wife, I don't remember your husband's name. Can you please tell me? And she said, I cannot take my husband's name. So if you go back to the discussion in Canto 3, the Devahuti chapters, there's actually a verse which says that the wife should not take the husband's name. So it is possible to live even today according to how the Vedic culture is described in Bhagavatam. And that's what is described. And that's the ideal of how and where we should be moving towards. Shivangi.
Thank you, Prabhuji. My grandmother used to be like that too,
Okay, very good.
from what I can remember.
Shalini Gopal.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So here we were reading about, Vaidarbhi, her lamentation and crying so much. So is that normal, Prabhu? Is that correct at that stage also, Prabhu?
So we have discussed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verses 8 to 12, the difference between lamentation and grieving. So grieving a little bit for the departed soul, even though it is at body level, grieving is okay. Lamentation is condemned. So, and the difference is that in lamentation, the person is simply crying and crying and crying for weeks, months, years, and not coming out of it. That sort of lamentation is not advisable. It's also described, I think it was in chapter 17 or chapter 18 chart that we populated, that lamentation is not an ideal quality to have. But grieving a little bit to heal yourself, that's okay. That is required actually. Shalini.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes.
Right, so we don't have to artificially frisk away our feelings in the name of Krishna consciousness. No, Krishna consciousness is not setting aside feelings. No, we have to have feelings for our family members, just not the lamentation way.
Is this lamentation because she is scared for her safety?
So, some fear everybody will have, as long as one is not a pure devotee, they will have some lamentation. Of course, here the lamentation is for separation from the devotee and separation from the spiritual master. That's the lamentation.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
All right, so this chapter 28, the last set of verses, is part 5, verses 51 to 65. Title is Abhigyana or Abhijanataha. The Lord instructs Vaidarbhi. So essentially the set of verses are one set of verses. The thought process follows along. Sridhar Prabhu, are you able to read 51-52 translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My dear king, one Brahmana who was an old friend of King Puranjana came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words. Text 52. The Brahmana inquired as follows: Who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you are lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. Hare Krishna.
So the Lord appeared as Brahmana. Now an obvious question is, why did the Lord not appear in his original form as Sri Krishna instead of appearing as Brahmana? The answer is, unless one is highly elevated in loving the Lord, one cannot see him as he is. Therefore, the Lord first came as Brahmana. So the law in verse we read that the Lord is saying, I am your eternal friend. You have consulted me many times. So upon hearing this, the Jiva would normally say, I don't remember you. Can you please remind me? And therefore the verse 53, 54, 55 follow in that thought process. Sridhar Prabhu, 53, 54, 55.
Hare Krishna. 53. The Brahmana continued, My dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. Text 54. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. Text 55. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic and not seeing me. You have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
So the natural position of the jiva is to lovingly serve Krishna. When the jiva desires to enjoy by themselves like Krishna by misusing their minute independence, they develop the consciousness of duality, resulting in hating devotional service to Krishna. And the result is they fall down into material realm. So although these are very few verses, but still they give a very clear step-by-step process of how we all gave up the association of our intimate friend Lord Shri Krishna and how we fell down, how we gave up devotional services. So verses 56 to 58 describe the body again allegorically. Sridhar Prabhu, 56 to 59 translations.
Text 56. In that city, the material body, there are 5 gardens, 9 gates, 1 protector, 3 apartments, 6 families, 5 stores, 5 material elements, and 1 woman who is Lord of the house. Text 57. My dear friend, the 5 gardens are the 5 objects of sense enjoyment, and the protector is the life air, which passes through the 9 gates. The 3 apartments are the chief ingredients: fire, water, and earth. The 6 families are the aggregate total of the mind and 5 senses. Text 58. The 5 stores are the 5 working sensory organs. They transact their business through the combined forces of the 5 elements, which are eternal. Behind all this activity is the soul. The soul is a person and an enjoyer in reality. However, because he is now hidden within the city of the body, he is devoid of knowledge. Text 59. My dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the woman of the material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conceptions, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Hare Krishna.
So you can again make a 2-column chart for all these verses doing the comparison. So all these places are described and how and what they are representing in the body. So 5 gardens represents the 5 sense objects. 9 gates refer to the 9 openings in the body. 1 guard is the life air. 3 apartments are earth, water, and fire. 6 families are 5 knowledge senses and the mind. 5 stores are 5 action senses. 5 powers of state are 5 gross elements. 1 mistress is intelligence, and 1 master is the jiva. Did everybody get the comparison? You want me to repeat anything? So upon hearing this knowledge, the jiva would normally say, I have never heard this knowledge of the self. Please tell me what I should know. Therefore, the Lord says in verse number 60, you are not this body, you are soul. Srila Prabhu, 60 translation.
Text 60. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vaidarbhi, nor is this man Malayadwaja your well-wishing husband, nor were you the actual husband of Puranjani. You were simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. Hare Krishna.
Right? Lord is saying, you are not this body. You are a soul. So upon hearing this, the jiva should inquire that if I am a soul, how come I am not aware of this? And the Lord responds that it is because of my Maya. Sridhar, 61.
Hare Krishna. Sometimes you think yourself a man, sometimes a chaste woman, and sometimes a neutral eunuch. This is all because of the body, which is created by the illusionary energy. This illusionary energy is my potency. And actually, both of us, you and I, are pure spiritual identities. Now, just try to understand this. I am trying to explain our factual position. Hare Krishna.
So, further instruction is the qualitative oneness between the soul and the super soul, but quantity is different. Sridhar Prabhu, 62, 63 translation.
Text 62. My dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are not different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, you are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider this subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars who are in knowledge do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. Text 63. As a person sees the reflection of his body in a mirror to be one with himself and not different, whereas others actually see 2 bodies. So, in our material condition, in which the living being is affected and yet not affected, there is a difference between God and the living entity. Text 64.
Yeah, 64, 65, straightforward translations.
64. In this way, both swans live together in the heart. When the one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. Text 65. My dear King Prachinavarhi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is celebrated to be known indirectly. Thus, I have described the story of Puranjana to you. Actually, it is an instruction for self-realization. Hare Krishna.
So all this allegorical discussion gets completed here. And the verse 65 purport we had read at the start of this unit, we'll read again to refresh and connect all the dots. Gopal Prabhu, 65 purport.
Hare Krishna. Text 65 purport. There are many similar stories in Puranas for self-realization. As stated in the Vedas, Paroksha Priya Iva Ihi Deva. There are many stories in the Puranas that are intended to interest ordinary men in transcendental subjects, but actually these refer to real facts. They are not to be considered stories without a transcendental purpose. Some of them refer to real historical facts. One should be interested, however, in the real purport of the story. Indirect instruction is quite quickly understandable for a common man. Factually, the path of Bhakti Yoga is the path of hearing directly about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sharavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Sharanam. But those who are not interested in hearing directly about the activities of the Lord or who cannot understand them can very effectively hear such stories and fables as this one narrated by Narada Muni. The following is a glory of some of the important words in this chapter. Adesha Kari, the actions resulting from sinful activities. Agastya, the mind. Amatya, the governor of the senses, the mind. Arbuda, various types of Shravana, Kirtana of the Supreme Lord's name, quality, form, and so on. Ari, impediments like disease. Bhoga, enjoyment. Herein, this word refers to real enjoyment in spiritual life. Bhartya, the servants of the body, namely the senses. Dravida Raja, devotional service or a person eligible to act in devotional service. Dvara, the doors of the body such as the eyes and ears. Graha, home. For spiritual cultivation, one requires an undisturbed place on the good association of devotees. Idmavaha, the devotees who approaches the spiritual master. Idma refers to wood that is taken to burn as fuel for a fire. A brahmachari is supposed to take this idma to ignite the fire used in performing sacrifices. By spiritual instruction, a brahmachari is trying to ignite a fire and offer oblations in the morning. He is supposed to go to the spiritual master to take lessons on the transcendental subject matter. And the Vedic injunction is that when approaching the spiritual master, one must carry with his fuel to perform yajnas and sacrifices. The exact Vedic injunction is as follows. Tat Vijnanaratham sa gurum yeva bichahat samit panikhastriyam brahma nistham. To learn transcendental subject matter, one must approach the spiritual master. In doing so, he should carry fuel to burn in sacrifice. The symptom of such a spiritual master is that he is expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion, and therefore he constantly engages in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mukunda Upanishad 1.2.12. Well, by serving such a bona fide spiritual master, gradually a conditional soul becomes detached from the material enjoyment and invariably makes progress in spiritual realization under the direction of the spiritual master. Those who are misled by the illusory energy are never interested in approaching a spiritual master to make life successful. Jaya, intelligence. Jirnas Sarpa, the fatigued air of life. Kalakanya, the invalidity of old age. Kama, a high fever. Kulachala, the place where there is no disturbance. Kutumbini, intelligence. Madrikeshna. Madrikeshna refers to one whose eyes are so attractive that one who observes them becomes maddened by her. In other words, Madrikeshna Madrikshana means a very beautiful young girl. According to Jiva Goswami, Madrikshana means the personality deity of Bhakti. If one is attracted by the Bhakti cult, he becomes engaged in the service of the Lord and the spiritual master, and thus his life becomes successful. Vaidarbhi, this woman became a follower of her husband. As she left her comfortable home for the service of her husband, a serious student of spiritual understanding must give up everything for the service of the spiritual master. As stated by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, Yashya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasada. If one wants the actual success in life, he must strictly follow the instructions of the spiritual master. By following such instructions, one is sure to make rapid progress in spiritual life. This statement by Vishwanath Chakravarti is in pursuance of the following injunction of Svetaishvara Upanishad 6.23. Yashya Deva Para Bhaktir Yatha Deva Tata Guru Tashyate Kathigata Hya Arthaha Prakashante Maha Manaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. In the Chandoya Upanishad, it is said, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who approaches a bona fide spiritual master can understand everything about spiritual devotion. Malayadvaja, a nice devotee who is like sandalwood. Panchala, the five sense objects. Parichada, the total aggregate of senses. Purajana, the seven elements that constitute the body. Putra, patience and gravity. Prajavara, a kind of fever called Vishnu Chivara. Pratikriya, counteracting agents such as mantras and medicines. Pura Palaka, the life air. Putra, consciousness. Sainika, the condition of threefold miseries. Saptashruta, the seven sons, namely hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping the deity, and becoming a servant of the Lord. Shrudya, endeavor. Sutta, the son of Vaidarbhi, or in other words, who is somewhat advanced in fruitive activities, who comes in contact with a devotee spiritual master. Such a person becomes interested in the subject matter of devotional service. Vaidarbhi, the woman who was formerly a man who took birth as a woman in his next life because of too much attachment to woman. Dharba means kushagras. In fruitive activities or karmakandya ceremonies, one requires a kusagras. The Vaidarbhi refers to one who takes birth in a family of karmakandya understanding. However, if by karmakanda activities one by chance comes in contact with a devotee, Vaidarbhi did when she married Malayadvaja, his life becomes successful. He then pursues the devotional service of the Lord. The conditioned soul becomes liberated simply by following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. Vidarbha Rajasimha, the best person who are expert in fruitive activities. Virya, one who has mercy. Yamna, the servant of Yamaraja. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 4th canto, 28th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Puranjana becomes a woman in the next life. Hare Krishna.
So, why allegorical story? The path of Bhakti Yoga is the path of hearing directly about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It says Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. But those who are not interested in hearing directly about the activities of the Lord, or who cannot understand them, can very effectively hear such stories as this one narrated by Srila Narad Muni, the story of Puranjana narrated to Prachini Barisat to tell the life story of Prachini Barisat to Prachini Barisat. Questions, comments, realizations?
Very practical set of
Prabhuji,
chapters.
the indirect instruction always listen and thought process, correct?
Correct. Shivangi is also correct. That is a very practical chapter. And yes, Uncle is also correct that it hits you directly. You may not realize, but this whole 4 chapters are allegory, but it's very practical.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we say world so much advancement, everything. I can't imagine more than 5,000 or yugas back kind of intelligence, the way this whole story, the way it is portrayed, how such a meaning is conveyed to us as unimaginable.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, Prabhuji, the last part of it is, very simply it is, we are able to understand.
Yeah. So very good. And why you all are able to understand is because of continued devotional service, because of purification, because you have the sincerity. Therefore, Krishna as Chaitya Guru is also helping and guiding from within. So these all are very good signs for all of you. Thank you. Spiritual endeavor questions. Number 1, explain Nirjana Bhajan. Comes from verse 33. Number 2, how did King Malayadwaja conquer life's relatives? Comes from verse 37. So we have completed this chapter 28 and this unit number 19. Next week, we'll have the revisions. I have the schedule on the screen. Some of you have already populated. There are 2 spots available. For those who have not yet chosen, you can please let me know at your earliest. Similarly, the next unit is only 3 chapters. So we'll also have shorter count of devotees who will be able to present. So grab your opportunities as soon as is possible. As I said at the start that tomorrow Sunday, daylight saving time changes. We push our clocks 1 hour forward. So we'll change the time that Toronto time, we'll push it 1 hour forward. So class will start Toronto time 11:45. India time will stay the same so that it does not become quite late for devotees in India. So from the previous class, there were no inquiries. There were only striking points. So you have 5 slides. You can see on the screen. You can take a snapshot. This is slide number 1. Slide 2. Slide 3. Slide 4. And slide 5. So some of you devotees are still not completing the spiritual endeavor, I request you to please complete the spiritual endeavor. Doesn't take long to complete, but then it solidifies your understanding. Plus, you are trying to engage yourself in devotional service. You're trying to remember whatever you have discussed in class. Now, a couple of devotees had slightly mentioned the 7 sons, not exactly what the verse we read and discussed. So from the stacking points, I request all of you to please read. So I did fine-tune your responses that the 7 sons are the 7 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, offering worship, offering prayers, rendering transcendental loving service, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. For the presentation next week, I request all of you to try to stick to the allotted time, because you can see we are not really having a lot of room beyond our class time. So try to stick to your presentation time, although otherwise we will go a little over, but it's okay with me. Try your best. Any questions, comments, realizations? Are we okay to stop here?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Hare Krishna.